Everyone to the Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series. Thanks so much for joining us today. Today we'll be talking about National Mentoring Month and how to use research-backed recruitment strategies and tactics. I'm Erin Souza-Rezendes from Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership, and I'll be facilitating today's conversation around National Mentoring Month. In the spirit of this week for Thanksgiving, we're so grateful to have a star lineup for you today. So let's get started. This webinar is part of the Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series, which is funded by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention through the National Mentoring Resource Center, or NMRC, and it's facilitated in partnership with us here at Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. These webinars would not be possible without the planning team, which includes the mentoring partnerships shown on this slide. And in addition to this webinar series, the NMRC provides resources for mentoring practitioners. At the end of this webinar, we'll provide more details about how you can access this free support. Before we get started, I want to share some housekeeping information. In 1 week, you'll receive an email with information about how to download a copy of these slides and view the webinar recording. You can also access this information directly by going to Mentor's website in the next week. And to continually improve the series, we're looking for your input. A short survey will pop up as you exit the webinar, so please take 3 minutes to give us your feedback. And we'd really love for this to be a participatory experience, so please use the question box to ask questions throughout the webinar. Cheryl Howard-Neal, the Director of Programs and Partnerships at Mentor Illinois, and a contributor to the Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series planning team, will be facilitating a Q&A towards the end of the webinar. She'll be queuing up questions to share with panelists towards the end, and we may not get to all questions because there are several hundred of you joining us today, but we'll do our very best. And the questions that we share with our panelists are generally ones that broaden or deepen the conversation. First, to get a sense of who is on the line with us today, we have 2 very quick polls. The first, what is your experience level in the mentoring field? You could just select one. Awesome, looks like it's a pretty nice mix of beginner experience and a few experts. And second, we'd love to know about your role in the mentoring field. Are you a practitioner, are you a researcher, technical assistance provider, funder? Or if you don't see something that best categorizes your work, you can choose other. Really want to just reinforce that we welcome everyone and think that today's information will be applicable to everyone on the line. Again, nice. It looks like a nice mix of 44% are practitioners, but 37% chose other. Maybe you're doing a mix of all of these things. We have some practitioners, researchers, technical assistance providers, and funders on the line. Great. We're hopeful that this will be useful for everyone who's dialed in. So now let's dive into the content portion of the webinar. Today, we'll focus on National Mentoring Month, which takes place every January. We'll use this time to hear about how to leverage the milestone as an opportunity for recruitment, and we'll hear research-backed tips and learn tactical tools to engage and expand our audiences. I'll share with you some background about National Mentoring Month and Mentor's national survey that gave us some really rich insights into what mentoring programs and practitioners are eager to hear about recruitment. And we're thrilled to also be joined by a lineup of experts, including Jamie Farnsworth Finn from NBC's Education Nation, Sarah Boison from America's Promise Alliance, and Rich Greif from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Massachusetts Bay. And again, just a brief reminder that there will be a Q&A panel throughout the presentation, so you can feel free to drop in your questions in real time, and hopefully we'll get to them all at the end. So let's just quickly introduce myself. As I said, I'm Erin Souza-Rezendes. I'm the Director of Communications here at Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. And I am so grateful to work to elevate the mentoring field through strategic communications and media relations. I like to say that I am a strategic cheerleader for the organization and the field at large. And more than a decade helping mission-driven organizations and leaders tell their stories, and have a bit of a journalism background before moving into the public relations space. So that's just a bit about me. And now I'd love to talk about National Mentoring Month. And sort of the reason we're on the phone today, kicking this off, is National Mentoring Month is happening in January. It's an annual event, and it's the largest scale mentoring campaign nationwide, and it culminates every year with Mentor's National Mentoring Summit, where more than 1,000 members of the mentoring movement descend upon Washington, D.C. and share best practices and network. The campaign is led by Mentor and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health with support from the Highland Street Foundation. And National Mentoring Month reflects on the incredible growth of the mentoring movement since our first National Mentoring Month more than a decade and a half ago in 2002. We recognize the real-life mentoring relationships that are formed and thriving each day, and it offers an opportunity to thank the mentors who have inspired us. So really, it's an awesome recruitment timing. It's a really great hook, and we have a really extensive Mentoring Month toolkit that we're happy to share with you that includes some really tangible ways that your organizations can get involved and use National Mentoring Month as a way to elevate your work, expand your audience, and really create some stickiness with the people who already care about what you're doing. And so just quickly, some of the key campaign dates that we want to make sure you know about throughout National Mentoring Month. On this next slide, January 4th is I Am a Mentor Day, a day for volunteer mentors to celebrate their role and reflect on the ways mentees have enhanced their world. So we have Thank Your Mentor Day as well, and here at Mentor, we're in the middle of our Thank Your Mentor campaign that started on November 1st. So I Am a Mentor Day is sort of the flip side of that, where mentors are sharing the impact of mentoring on them rather than the other way around, which is a little more common. Then January 11th is the National Mentoring Month kickoff Twitter chat with our friends at America's Promise Alliance. The social media opportunity to discuss all things National Mentoring Month and how mentoring is impacting local communities. So we hope you'll join that and encourage your audiences to participate as well. Then January 15th is Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. It's a day to share in the inspirational words of Martin Luther King Jr. and to elevate the spirit of service through volunteerism. So it's another great hook for you to use with your audiences to get involved and talk about mentoring as a service. January 17th is International Mentoring Day, so going global, a day of international conversations on social media where photos, video, and powerful mentoring stories are shared. It's another opportunity to engage with a relatively light lift by sharing on social media. And then finally, January 25th, which is right at the close of our National Mentoring Summit, is Thank Your Mentor Day. It's a day for all of real-life mentoring experiences to thank those who help them on their path to adulthood and beyond. And the idea is really to be able to take a moment to acknowledge that none of us have done this alone, and we all have mentors. So that is something we'd love for you to participate in. And we can also share this listing separately. It's part of the National Mentoring Month toolkit as well. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions about how to engage in any of those particular activities. And also just want to share some additional ways to utilize National Mentoring Month. I know our panelists are going to tell you a little more in depth some real tangible tools you can use, but we'd love to just share a few high-level ones from Mentor. Hold a special recruitment event in your local community and invite partners to attend. So you can share with your community the real life experience of mentor recruitment and see people who have skin in the game. Also engage with potential volunteers and community partners on social media, kind of like you're doing right now, which is great. Create original content like videos, custom graphics, posters, and materials that speak to the need for mentoring in your area. Or write about the need for mentoring and publish to your blog, or even promote via local media channels. And again, we'll hear a little bit more about how to actually make this a reality when we hear from our panelists. And just a special note from Mentor about some new content that we'll be excited to share in January. We've just wrapped up shooting a youth-focused video highlighting the impact of mentoring, all shared from the perspective of the young people that we and your program serve. We're so excited to share that with you as another tool in your toolkit to boost recruitment, and we'll be sure to share it far and wide come January. I wanted to give you a little sneak peek of that. And so why we're focusing on recruitment today. I mentioned earlier that Mentor conducted the largest national survey of mentoring programs nationwide, and we gleaned some really valuable insights. The programs reported to us that mentor recruitment is one of their biggest challenges. The program survey also provided valuable insights into effective recruitment strategies, which is what we really want to focus on today. So not only did we learn that recruitment is a big challenge, but we also know there are some tangible ways to do it, including word of mouth campaigns, community events, social media outreach, and media and public relations. So this next slide here shows you a little snapshot of the data. We won't get too in the weeds on this, but we'll share that the survey data really demonstrated what we in the mentoring movement know to be true from experience, that word of mouth promotion by current mentors and recruitment presentations were rated as programs' most successful strategies. So those were working the best for them, followed by a direct ask from someone they know and trust, a vote of confidence from the media, so some earned media, a story about mentoring recruitment was really powerful, followed by community events, and finally, online outreach. So this is what we heard from you all from programs about what is working for them and the areas where they hope to hear a little bit more about how to put this into practice. So today, we'll hear from some experts on the ground in each of these categories who offer concrete examples and templates for putting these tools into practice. So first up to talk about media, I'm thrilled to introduce a friend and partner of mentors in the mentoring movement, Jamie Farnsworth Finn. Jamie serves as Digital and Operations Manager at NBC News, where she works on the education initiatives NBC Learn and Education Nation. She's also the managing editor for ParentsToolkit.com. Before focusing on the education space, Jamie worked as a TV news producer, covering stories for NBC News' former news magazine, Rock Center, with Brian Williams. And we at Mentor had the absolute privilege of working with Jamie earlier this year when Education Nation came to Boston to do a live broadcast. So I'm thrilled to hand it over to you, Jamie.
Thank you, Erin. I'm glad to be here. So I wanted to start today just by giving you all a little background about kind of who we are over here at NBC's Education Nation. I know it often seems like kind of a funny fit when we're talking about mentoring as to why NBC is interested in this and kind of what our role has historically been in this. So some of you may be familiar with Education Nation, but for those of you who may not be, I just wanted to start by giving you some background about our education initiative. We launched back in 2010 with the goal of elevating the conversation around education. We really felt that as a news organization, at the heart of what we do is to be a public service. And what better public service is there than education? So we started about 7 years ago now, I guess, with these big kind of summits that were focused here in New York City. We brought in a lot of thought leaders, had a lot of great conversations with members of government, with teachers, with students. And over those first 3 years, we not only had the big summits here in New York, we also took Education Nation on the road and visited local communities. And we really felt that as we kind of went down that path, a lot of conversations that we were having were great, but we really felt that we were missing parents in those discussions. A lot of times, we'll talk to people and they'll say, parents are a child's first teacher. And if a parent can advocate for their children, they're really key to supporting students. One of the things that I always like to focus in on is that students are only in school, give or take about 8 hours a day. So what are they doing the rest of the time? Where are they spending their time? Are they getting support? That can come from parents, but it also comes from teachers, coaches, and of course, mentors as well. So what we saw as our role in kind of supporting students launched with our free resource, parenttoolkit.com, which is a free website that's developed to offer tips and advice and tools. While it's called Parent Toolkit, we always think of it as available to anyone who is supporting students outside of the classroom to more effectively offer that support. So it shows what kids are learning in school and ways to support that learning, as well as health and wellness information and social and emotional development. Last spring, we actually launched a new Life After High School section to help students and their caring adults navigate kind of this post-high school track, regardless of kind of where they're going, whether it's college or career. And we really see mentoring as an important part of that. I would say, none of us probably got to where we are today without someone offering us advice or helping us out along the way. So the next thing that I would love to touch on is kind of looking at why mentoring? Why are we interested in this theme? As I mentioned, we see Parent Toolkit not just for parents, but really for any caring adults. And the entire mission of Education Nation and subsequently Parent Toolkit is really to support students. So we see mentors playing a really big role in that. And we really feel like as a news organization, we have the opportunity to highlight the power that mentors can have and really show people how they can make a difference themselves. A lot of times, you'll hear stories about something that's happening in the world, and a lot of times people's first reaction is, well, what can I do about it? How can I get involved? And so we often see mentoring as a way to kind of answer that question. I know a lot of you mentioned in the poll at the beginning of this that you are kind of very experienced in this field. But what I'd love to talk to you about for a little bit here is how we have decided to message mentoring. It is something that we have kind of thought about over the last 3 years as we've worked on this and really kind of started digging into mentoring as well. A lot of times we find that our audience is often a lot of people who are educators, administrators, or in the nonprofit arena who are doing work in the education space. They kind of understand, for lack of a better word, edu-speak or the jargon that kind of goes along with this field. But we also have a lot of people who are tuning in, who are joining us on social, who are not kind of in that world, who are just plain old parents who may be working at a bank or working, at a grocery store or wherever they may be. And we want to make sure that we kind of keep our language to a place where everyone can understand what we're talking about, whether or not we're coming from the same place. So we always try to keep that in mind and keep our kind of use of jargon or edu-speak to a minimum. And we really want people to grasp on to that idea of a mentor. We want it to be kind of readily accessible and understandable, no matter where you live, in the country, in the world, et cetera. So we always try to highlight and give examples of mentors we like to point out that even if you don't call them a quote unquote mentor, there's probably someone in your life that has influenced you. And we really try to drive that point home quite often. It's often kind of difficult saying, you know, find your child a mentor or become a mentor. Not everyone will automatically know what that means. And if you do know exactly what a mentor is, you may also think that it's something that has to be very formal and that you have to sign up for a program to do that. So our position is kind of which, you know, there are opportunities to be those formal mentors, but really anyone can support students and be a resource for them. I have a few examples here. On the top right is a tip from our education section of Parent Toolkit about helping students with math. The tip here is identifying a friend or family member who might use math in their everyday work life and asking them to talk to your child about that. That is not a formal mentoring partnership, but it could be something that helps a student in math. Below that, we have on the left-hand side, an example from a participant in a Twitter chat that we hosted, who really, I think, to us, highlighted to the point that anyone can be a mentor. In this case, he shared an example from a professor. He says, I was a teen dad in community college with no direction, and a professor who became my mentor believed in me, and that's all it took. So really highlighting, you know, kind of the real world application of mentors. We also have a screenshot here from an article about mentoring and how we've messaged the importance of mentoring for young people by starting to talk about the impact that people have had on their parents' lives, trying to make that connection, saying, hey, you probably had someone support you. You can help your child find someone to support them as well. And then the final screenshot I have here is another example of that messaging. This was from the recent event we did in Boston that Erin mentioned at the top. We actually had a call to action that we partnered with Mentor on, and we used the hashtag Help Build the Future. And that again ties into the strength that mentoring can have on students and have on our kind of society as a whole. And we tried to purposely message that in a way that it could work in a variety of scenarios and resonate whether you quickly understood mentoring as a formal concept or not. And while I touched on some of the ways we message mentoring, now I just want to take a little time to talk a bit more about the different strategies that we found helpful for us to highlight mentoring to our audiences with that messaging in mind. There are a few ways we've tried to elevate the role of mentors and the importance of mentoring relationships. Each month, the Education Nation handle on Twitter hosts our Parent Toolkit related Twitter chats. We utilize the hashtag Toolkit Talk and focus on a different topic each month. Since we started these chats back in 2014, we've had two that focus on mentoring. One was in January, tied to the honoring of National Mentoring Month. And the aim of this chat was really to build awareness for mentoring relationships and the impact those relationships can have on students. So we partnered for that one with Mentor and America's Promise Alliance. And again, to the point of messaging, we actually started that chat with a very simple question: what is a mentor? And then we expanded it from there. What is the value of having a mentor? How can parents help find them for their kids? Who benefits from having a mentor? And so on. During the chat, we actually saw great success with this one. We had the hashtag reach 10 million people. We saw retweets from both our NBC News and nightly news accounts, which really helped drive that awareness that we were looking for. And this fall, we hosted another chat focused on near peer mentors and the impact that they can have. And again, we started out with that messaging in mind. We had the chat start out kind of the same way, identifying what near peer mentoring is and going from there. You'll notice in the screenshot for the title of the chat, we actually didn't use mentoring in the title of the chat, trying to make sure that people could kind of understand what we were talking about and get excited about it. So in that place, we used peer-to-peer connections, building the future. And as part of that Education Nation event in Boston, we had that call to action that I mentioned with our talent. We had Lester Holt, Kate Snow, Craig Melvin, and Dylan Dreyer all encourage viewers to become mentors. Kate highlighted her longtime work with Big Sisters, and Dylan highlighted the influence that her mentor had on her. So we really felt like using our anchors and our talent, faces that are really familiar to a range of viewers, help to normalize that mentor messaging as well. You know, if Lester Holt tells you the impact a mentor has and says that in the context of supporting students, we really hoped that it would resonate with our viewers, again, kind of regardless of where they're coming from and how much they understand mentoring as well. And then, as I've mentioned, our Parent Toolkit website, we have a few different articles on the site specifically about mentoring. And that is something we will include. I'll put some links into the PDF that you guys all get if you wanted to take those out. But specifically, we had some guest posts from a first-generation college student who was featured in one of our panels from Education Nation Baltimore in 2016, talking about the impact that his mentors had. We have advice for parents on finding a mentor for their child, with kind of goals for the mentorship and how to manage children's expectation and how to find the right program. And we also have a post about encouraging teens to become mentors as a way to make an impact. So again, all of these efforts are really focused on demystifying mentoring, not assuming that a reader or viewer already knows what mentoring is, but really trying to make mentoring and mentoring relationships accessible for everyone. To wrap up, I wanted to give you all a little bit of advice about working with the media. I think, you know, having worked for, 11 years now in the news world, I think NBC and Education Nation, we're a bit unique from a media perspective in that we have a really robust initiative of our own, and we're really actively looking for ways that are mutually beneficial between us and other similar missioned organizations. But from kind of a broad general media company standpoint, especially with local television affiliates, a lot of places you'll see in local media have mission-driven campaigns that they kind of call on throughout the year. The biggest advice that I can give you is building relationships. A lot of what you're going to get success with is because you know someone somewhere. So I'll let you in on a little secret. In my experience, everyone who has gone into journalism did it because they believe in the mission. They believe in giving a voice to the voiceless, in doing good. And that's often very close to kind of a mission-driven standpoint of a nonprofit or an educator. So you already have something in common. A lot of news organizations will have a public affairs department or a person who leads their community outreach efforts. If you can identify that person and work on building a relationship with them, you know, maybe you can go to coffee together, keep them updated on what you're doing. That may offer some more opportunities to work together around National Mentoring Month. One of the things I would say is you're kind of trying to find this person, if you don't know them already, to make sure that you do some research first. Do you have any friends or coworkers in common? Do you know someone who knows someone that could make an introduction? One of the things about working in the media is we're often really busy and we like to kind of host our own things, but that doesn't mean that you can't hop in, help amplify a message and start a relationship that way. Say, hey, I saw this really great campaign that you guys ran. We do something similar. Can we, you know, go out to coffee and talk about it at some time? And then there's, of course, the more traditional route of pitching a story for coverage as well. The best way to pitch any idea is to really be read in on the person and the platform that you're pitching. For example, I get about, on average, 10 pitches a day. My email is always full of them. And if anyone who is pitching me for coverage of a story looks at anything that's publicly available, like my LinkedIn profile or byline on stories that I've written for NBCnews.com, you'd know that I focus on education and parenting. But I still get pitches about an ice cream shop opening in San Francisco. And I will tell you, I'm not going to open a pitch from that email address again. It shows me that someone didn't really take any time to figure out who I am or what I might be interested in. So really think about who you're pitching and the medium that you're pitching. For example, if you're pitching someone in television, they're going to want something visual. Is there a gathering that you're doing? Is there something that they can send a camera to that's going to be interesting? And if you're pitching a story about the importance and impact that mentoring has, if you know a mentor-mentee pair or a few of them that you could say to a reporter or producer, hey, we have this great, couple that went through our program. Here's their contact information if you're interested in speaking with them. That makes things a lot easier because we're always also trying to find kind of real life characters to tell those stories. So I will wrap up here. I believe I am just about out of time, but I look forward to any questions that you guys may have during the Q&A portion.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was really, really helpful, and I have learned a lot from hearing that. And I think that's so hilarious that you continue to get pitches about ice cream shops. I mean, who doesn't love ice cream? But
I love ice cream. I don't live in San Francisco, unfortunately.
and it's too bad your job is not writing about ice cream all day. That would be pretty awesome. Thank you again. We'll now pass it over to another friend and partner in the mentoring movement, Sarah Boison. Sarah is the digital director on the award-winning communications team at America's Promise Alliance. Sarah is an interactive online communicator, community manager, content creator, and digital strategist. And her most recent work includes the hashtag Recommit to Kids campaign for the 20th anniversary of America's Promise Alliance. Some of you may have heard Sarah's tips and tricks in the past as she has shared her expertise on previous CMWS webinars and various other mentor projects. Thank you so much and welcome, Sarah.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah from America's Promise Alliance. I'm really excited to speak with you all about how you can use social media and your digital properties to help drive your mentor recruitment for National Mentoring Month. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about America's Promise Alliance. For those who may not be familiar, we are the nation's largest network dedicated to improving the lives of children and youth. And we bring together more than 450 national organizations and thousands of community leaders to focus the attention on young people's lives and voices while leading bold campaigns to expand opportunity, conduct groundbreaking research on what young people need to thrive, and accelerate the adoption of strategies that help young people succeed. And we are very excited about National Mentoring Month. For us, it's something that allows us to really dive deeper into one of our 5 promises. And in the case of the 5 promises, that's around the belief that we feel all young people need access to each 5 promises in order to thrive. And those 5 promises are caring adults, safe places, a healthy start, effective education, and opportunities to serve. And it's important to highlight here that for America's Promise, National Mentoring Month and mentors work aligns perfectly with our first promise, caring adults. So while we're thinking about our participation in National Mentoring Month, we're also thinking broadly about how do we empower and share stories of impact regarding caring adults. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go through 5 tips that you all can use and we've used at America's Promise to help plan, create, curate, and share out content for National Mentoring Month that'll help drive recruitment. My hope is that you're able to walk away with this information that will help you and your colleagues develop an engagement strategy that works for your organization. So the first place I'm going to kick off at is meeting people where they are. I really want to start by saying your organization doesn't need to be on every single social media platform. There are so many times when we hear about a new and shiny platform that's coming out and everybody wants to get on there, but then we find ourselves unable to produce content to keep the account up, or even worse, you find out that your audience isn't there. So it's important to know your audience and to have an understanding for which platforms they tend to use. That way you can get the most bang for your buck. You have to meet your audience where they are. So if most of your audience and most of your engagement is on Facebook, it's okay to focus on Facebook for National Mentoring Month. If most of your engagement is on Twitter or Instagram, then you would focus in those places as well. I would only recommend expanding to a new social media platform if you're prepared with content and have data and information that shows that your audience uses that platform. Another thing that you want to consider is being prepared to define and give examples of mentoring. So just building on what Jamie was talking about earlier, a lot of the times we've seen online, caring adults ask us, so what does mentoring a young person look like? Many people do have that very formal idea of mentoring, and you'll be very surprised to know that many of them are shocked to hear that mentoring can be as easy as taking an interest in a young person's life, or even being willing to help the young person make connections to other people. So National Mentoring Month is a great way for you to share a variety of stories and mentoring relationships so that your audience can see that there's more than one way to be a mentor, and that mentoring is something that can work with their lifestyle and can be a benefit to them and to the young person. The next thing that your organization wants to consider is goal setting. It's important to think about what your organization's goals will be during National Mentoring Month. How many volunteers do you want to recruit? Do you want to build awareness for any mentoring programs that you have? Make sure that you have a way for the people to sign up. I highly recommend Mentor's Mentoring Connector. It's a great tool that you can use for your program if you're not already using it. And then another question that you can ask yourself is, what does your level of participation and engagement look like for Mentoring Month? Now, if you're a staff of 2, your efforts will not be what a staff of 10 or 20 will be able to do. And many of us at nonprofits are always talking about capacity. It's a thing, right? But you can still leverage Mentoring Month in a way that will help you meet your goals. Goal setting can help us to work smarter and not harder. So the next thing you want to think about is content creation versus content resurfacing. So just to clarify a little bit, for those who aren't clear, content creation is the practice of where we ourselves are actually creating the content, right? So you're creating the blog post, you're creating the social media content. Content resurfacing is taking a look at all of the pieces that you've written previously and bringing them back from National Mentoring Month. So these could be pieces that you've written maybe throughout the year, and there might be some really good ones that you want to share with your audience. So even though National Mentoring Month kicks off in January, your organization should start planning now. The sooner you start planning out your involvement, the easier it'll be when the time comes. And that level of involvement will vary, right? So your organization might decide to pull out all the stops in regards to videos and graphics and GIFs or blogs, or maybe you have limited capacity. And like I said before, you may decide to resurface older content or share relevant articles, and that's perfectly okay. So the first step in doing that is getting together with the right people on your team or at the organization to decide, okay, what can you do, right? And then brainstorming is an effective way to determine what you can do within your means. So for us at America's Promise, we usually brainstorm about a month to 2 months in advance. So here are 4 questions that you're going to want to ask yourself. What is our level of effort? Do we need to create content for National Mentoring Month? Do we already have content that could be related to National Mentoring Month? And how can we leverage our content so that we're attracting caring adults and encouraging them to become mentors? I'm sure many of your organizations are constantly sharing stories about mentoring, but National Mentoring Month is really your opportunity to uplift the best of the best in terms of stories. Now, believe it or not, you don't always have to create new content in order to make an impact. If a story is still relevant, share it. 5 ways to do deeper dives on that story. For example, if an organization has a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, share a link to the web story on Facebook. But then on Instagram, share a photo and a compelling quote from that story. And then on Twitter, consider sharing the story during a Twitter chat or use it to illustrate a particular point in a conversation. Our strategic initiatives and partnerships team sits down and they identify partners every year with a focus on mentoring and caring adults. And we reach out to them for content. And then we select the best of the best to highlight on social media. So that's something each of your organizations can do as well. If you guys have partners and affiliates, this is also a great way to share those stories as well. So you're not using up a lot of time on trying to develop your own content. And then in addition, we're also very mindful to look out for articles in the news that are aligned with National Mentoring Month. And right now, if we're speaking frankly, people are really looking for positive news. So this is a great opportunity to share those stories of impact, to definitely get youth voice out there. And once you determine the type of content you have or you want, the best way is to organize it in calendar form. And for us, we've utilized the Date and Mentors Toolkit to help us determine which content makes the most sense during certain times. And we've actually given you all a template that you can go back to your organizations and utilize. It's the same template that we use at America's Promise that we found very useful in terms of making sure that we're collecting information and then figuring out how to disseminate it. So the next thing I want to talk about is engaging your networks. So long gone are the days where you can just post on social and hope for the best. Every second, there are about 6,000 tweets being sent, and more than 1 billion people are active on Facebook, and over 100 million people use Instagram every month. That means there's a lot of content being shared out there. So how can you get your content to rise above the fray? Influencers. I cannot stress this enough. Make a list of individuals and organizations who care about mentoring or connect and interact with you frequently and share your content with them. Ask them to share with their networks and make the content relevant for them too. And also use this as an opportunity to ask them if they have content so you can leverage that and make it a two-way street. Most of the work we do on social, surprisingly, is actually handled offline. Now, what I mean by that is we make connections over the phone and on email, and through those discussions, we actually figure out how to partner and work better together in order to leverage a moment and raise an awareness for an issue. So we encourage you all to connect with superstar mentors so that they can share their story as well. Because when caring adults see other caring adults sharing their personal stories, they'll often share their own too. And they may even decide to ask how they can give back and how they can get involved, which can help spearhead your recruitment. So another area that I want to talk about is engaging your audience. So as you're sharing content on social media, make a note of who is engaging with your content. If people comment, be sure to thank them. And also be sure to point them to where they can sign up to become a mentor or even get involved with your mentoring program. Stay on brand, but use this as an opportunity to be warm, humorous, and uplifting. Mentoring is a rewarding thing, and we want to make it as simple and easy as possible for others to get involved. I highly recommend using Mentor's Toolkit for key messaging and key facts about mentoring to share with others. And also be sure to share out a mix of content like blogs, photos, and videos. You're more likely to get more clicks if you share photos and videos. The direction of social right now is very much multimedia. So if you already have photos and videos of really compelling mentoring stories, don't be shy. Feel free to share those. So another thing I want to talk about is participating and leveraging National Mentoring Month events. So your engagement is more likely to go up when you have an authentic voice and when your audience sees you practicing what you preach. So there are actually, I'm just going to correct this really quick, there's actually 5 key dates and opportunities where there will be a high level of engagement. And at a minimum, your organization should be participating on these days. So be sure to tell your staff to join in as well, and maybe pick one day you can all do together. For us at America's Promise Alliance, we typically tend to galvanize, especially around the Twitter chat and MLK Day of Service. And the Twitter chats are great ways for you to increase your brand exposure and awareness and engage with new audiences. And as Erin mentioned before, we'll be doing a great Twitter chat with Mentor on January 11th. And if your organization is on Twitter, I highly encourage you to participate because it's an opportunity for you to highlight your program and its impact by sharing stories and solutions. And so many times individuals will join and they will want to figure out what resources are out there and how they can really get involved. And this is a great opportunity for you guys to highlight what you're doing. I also highly recommend MLK Day of Service. That's something that we do every year at America's Promise Alliance. It's another way to highlight how serving others can make a difference. International Mentoring Day and Think Your Mentor Day are also great ways to encourage people to become a mentor, along with I Am a Mentor Day. Those 3 days specifically, I would recommend really sharing existing stories that you have around mentoring. Make sure to have a variety of them too, so that you know, people are able to see like there's more than one way to mentor. And I definitely wouldn't be afraid to beat the drum for mentoring on those days. Like, consider it like this is your day to really go out there and really like show that mentoring is something that could be fulfilling, not only to the young person, but also to the mentor as well. A lot of people tend to forget that there could be some mentoring up. So I also just wanted to highlight a few photos from our partnership that we worked with City Year DC. We actually partnered with them and volunteered with them on MLK Day for the past couple of years. And it's really important to highlight this because your audience will see like, wow, like they are really serious about this work. And for us, it's something that we made sure to tell staff. We let our partners know about it as well. And then as you can see, there's like just a few like general stats there, but our engagement tends to be really high when we share that we're actually out in the field, you know, practicing what we preach as well. And people love to see real faces doing real things. So just to recap everything that we mentioned so far, it's important for you to meet your audience where they are. So decide which platforms you're going to use, stick to them. And then you be ready to define and or explain what mentoring is, because you're going to be really surprised the kind of questions that people ask on social. Be sure to set goals for your organization at the beginning and then determine your level of effort. Remember, you don't have to do everything, but do what makes sense for you and your team. Be sure to brainstorm and organize your content in advance. Again, we have a template that you are welcome to use. And also make sure you have an influencer strategy. You'd be very surprised that it's very easy to just push your content out there. But when you establish a network of people who are prepared to really help beat the mentoring drumbeat for you, you'll see that you'll get more bang for your buck, and you'll also expand your reach as well. And then lastly, be sure to participate in National Mentoring Month events. It gives your organization a much more authentic voice. And again, Twitter chats are also a great way to increase your engagement. They also help you to gain followers as well. And then lastly, I also have a couple of resources. In the past, I've definitely mentioned Canva. Canva is a great tool, especially for nonprofits. It's free, but then there's also a Canva for Work, which is kind of like their professional level. And that's still free for nonprofits. All you have to do is apply, and you'll get access to a suite of different templates, and we use it frequently at America's Promise as well. I highly recommend it. And I've also included 2 links if people are interested in learning more about how to utilize Facebook Live, which people are using much more these days. And if you're also interested about how to participate in the Twitter chat and how to even create your own, I've also included a link for that as well. Thank you.
Sarah, thank you so much for that. That was really in-depth and tangible, and I'm hopeful people can walk away with some very real things they can take back to their organizations and put into practice. So thank you again. And last but certainly not least, we'll pass the mic to another leader in the mentoring movement and a neighbor of ours at National Mentor Headquarters. Rich Greif is the Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Community Relations at Big Brothers Big Sisters of Massachusetts Bay, where he oversees the agency's marketing, volunteer recruitment, and community partnership strategies. Rich brings over 20 years of marketing experience and involvement in youth mentoring, including as a Big Brother. He's also the author of Big Impact, Big Brothers Making a Difference. We're thrilled to have him here with us today to share some practical tips on direct recruitment. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah, thanks, Erin, for having me. I'm excited to talk to everyone. You'll see on this first slide here just a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters of Massachusetts Bay. We're one of the 5 largest Big Brothers Big Sisters programs around the country. In Boston, we have a particular focus in Metro Boston on serving boys in particular, and we certainly know, along with many of you, just how hard it is to recruit men, but we have a really dedicated and specific focus on recruiting men, particularly for the boys that are on our waiting list. There's a little bit here, you see some of the demographics of our volunteers. We're also really focused on growing the diversity of our volunteers. We have a specific Latino and Spanish speaking effort to recruit more men and women who are Latino and Spanish speaking, and have hired staff who have expertise in that area. And we're also part of the national Generation to Generation campaign now that is focused on recruiting adults 50 years of age and older, specifically to mentor. So we're trying to diversify in a variety of ways. You can see a little bit of here about just the different number of organizations that volunteers come from. About half of our kids are in the city of Boston, but half are outside. And we last year made close to 1,000 new matches, and we're going to make over 1,100 this year as well. And just lastly, we do both kind of traditional community-based mentoring, mentoring at school and after-school programs. And we are also one of the Mentor 2.0 program affiliates that does college and career mentoring, specifically with high school students. So there's really 3 areas that I'll kind of touch on that are really key for us in all of our recruiting: direct recruitment, digital marketing, and referrals or word of mouth. Direct recruiting remains an important way for us to get in front of as many different audiences as possible, whether that's college, corporate, community audiences, or Latino affiliated organizations. As Sarah was sort of alluding to also, getting in front of everyone is not always now physically getting in front of everyone. We certainly try and do as many in-person sessions and recruiting information sessions that we can do, but we're starting and continuing to do more webinars, and we will also be experimenting with Facebook Live. So I really agree with what's said earlier about trying to meet people where they're at. Not everybody can get out of their office or take a lunch break or whatever to go to an info session, and so we need to bring opportunities directly to people, even if they're online. 2 key things just around direct recruiting. You know, we really leverage our existing mentors and our staff and our board to help us get into a range of corporate and community organizations. We literally develop a list every 3 months or so of the companies that we are specifically looking to get into and looking to get a connection at, and we send that around to everyone because we never know who's going to know somebody at some company, and that is always helpful. We always get a great response to that among our network. The other thing we've done the past couple years, specifically for National Mentoring Month, is we've done this 31 days of recruiting campaign where our goal is to get 31 information sessions booked at companies. As you can imagine, we're not necessarily doing them all January 1 to January 31, where the goal is to really get 31 information sessions booked. So it doesn't matter whether they happen in January or February or whenever. And so we have a specific form on our website for people to sign up. We put out an email right at the beginning of January. We're already trying to recruit in the fall, so sometimes we'll book people for January, and that'll get the ball rolling. Using National Mentoring Month as a time to recruit at companies really resonates with them. It's a great time also to appreciate and recognize volunteers at those companies, and not only have them speak, but maybe have them do a blog article if you have a blog, or highlight something on that company's intranet. They really love to highlight their own employees, so it's really a great opportunity to leverage your existing employees. As I've said on here as well, it's also worth, you know, some companies are obviously bigger than others. If you think that there are some, that's really a great opportunity to really think about organizing it as an event that you really think about pre, during, and post marketing. You know, companies will just put out a blurb of whatever you send them, but you really can help them market the event a lot better, whether that's tabling at the company in advance to let people know about the information session, whether that's sending along articles that they can send out to employees, whether that's getting employees within the company that are already volunteering for you to share information, to really think about trying to build it into a bigger event, because the key is actually getting people to show up and be there. So getting people in the room is really critical for that, and leveraging existing employees. So that's a little bit about direct recruiting and what we do. The second one that's been touched on a little bit is digital marketing specifically. Again, almost all of our digital marketing really focuses on men pretty exclusively. Women are awesome and come to us no matter what we put out online or anything. We always get women inquiring, so we actually don't have to really target women that much because they come to us naturally. So most of our digital marketing campaigns are really focused on men specifically, or it might be focused on a specific geography. One of the things that we found that's really helpful is, especially if you're targeting a specific geography, to really boil it down to what the specific need is in that community. So, if there's a need for, to match 5 boys and 5 girls in a specific community, that seems a lot more realistic to people than talking about your waiting list of hundreds and hundreds of kids, which can seem overwhelming to people. If you can really break it down to what the exact number is in a specific community, it's a lot easier for people to get a handle on. One thing that we've done throughout the year and will continue to do into the holidays also is highlight a waiting child of the month. Obviously, we work carefully with the parent and the family to make sure that they're okay with that. But once they are, we obviously present it in a very strengths-based way about why that child is looking forward to having a big brother or a big sister, what they're interested in doing, and all that type of stuff with pictures. And now we've been actually taking some video of some of the waiting littles. And people really respond to that, especially if it's in a specific community. It gives you an opportunity to really target that community and help get that child matched. And more often than not, we get many more inquiries than we need, obviously, to just match that one child. So it actually really helps us get a number of other kids matched. As Sarah was saying, we try to not be on every channel everywhere all the time because we can't be, and we don't have the time and resources to. Really, in terms of a lot of our digital marketing, we focus primarily on Facebook and Instagram. We do a lot of paid advertising on there. There's a variety of different ways you can do it. There are lead generation forms that you can use on Facebook. You can do direct advertising. You can do sponsored and promoted posts. And within that, there's really a lot of different ways that you can target people now. You can target by age, by interests. Sometimes you can put in specific employers and things like that. So there's really a lot of different ways that you can target. And more often than not, as I said, we really primarily target men for that. Photos and videos, has been mentioned, is really important, particularly in Boston. People really want to see people and places that look like Boston. So we take a lot of our photos and videos in recognizable locations so that people get a sense that it's a Boston feel and that this is really a program for them. The other thing with men that we really specifically emphasize is that 2 things. One, that the process is also a lot simpler than they think it is. If you follow through in your interview and your background check and your references and all of that, we can match you in 3 to 5 weeks. It's actually a lot quicker to get to see your little brother or little sister than you think it is. And then the other part in our advertising is really showing easy, everyday things that you, the potential volunteer, enjoy doing that you can do with your little brother or little sister. We really try and make sure people understand it's about having fun and enjoying things that you already enjoy doing and having a little brother or little sister as really part of that. We also use paid search and pay-per-click stuff on Google and Bing, and we've been experimenting a little bit on YouTube as well. We are able to actually retarget people who go to our website and actually take the email addresses of people who have engaged with us before and create what they call lookalike audiences on Facebook. It's kind of the same concept of, I'm a tennis player, so if I ever shop for a tennis racket, suddenly I'm on the internet and suddenly I see that tennis racket everywhere. Well, if you've been to our website, there's a way to retarget you to remind you that you've been to our site and to hopefully draw your interest back in coming to be a big brother or big sister. So digital marketing is really something that we've moved forward with and continue to use extensively in our recruiting efforts. The third one is really referrals, which I know was mentioned earlier by Erin as one of the top strategies. The thing that we've learned over time is that it just doesn't always happen organically. We know how impactful it is. More often than not, our yield on volunteers from inquiry to match is about 25%, but we were finding that when somebody was referred or recommended by somebody, it was closer to 50%. But what we were finding is that it was kind of just happening on its own and that we really needed to develop a more systematic way to address it. So we've developed a whole referral initiative that was based on some research that we did with John Hancock that had a few different things. One, we actually engage our match support staff in coaching bigs who want to learn more about ways that they can either refer other people or help create recruiting opportunities for us. So we talk to bigs directly through our match support calls. We do some specific campaigns engaging bigs around referrals. We've started a big league that has a number of ambassadors who all commit to helping refer other volunteers, helping create recruiting opportunities, or even helping share their story more publicly. We do targeted bring a friend events, and what we've learned with those is to really try and have a interesting topic or speaker that draws people in. You know, nobody wants to go to something that feels like a hard sell, but trying to get somebody in who would be of interest to both the volunteer and someone that they know has been really successful for us. And it's really a huge effort for us. You know, close to 13 to 15% of our matches were made through referrals before, and our plan is to grow that really to 20 to 25%. The other thing that was really important for us was to really track the referrals that were coming in, identify who was the influencer in that relationship, and actually have whoever in our agency was most closely connected to them go out and thank them, whether that's by email or in person, to really close the loop, because that helps validate that that person influenced somebody in some way and would encourage them to refer more people. So we've really put a system in place both to track, support, and coach our volunteers, as well as our staff and our board, to drive more referrals to us, because we know it works, but we needed a way to do it. And just lastly, real quickly, a few other things that we found that are really important in moving the needle forward is it's not just about getting that inquiry and getting that name. It's really about moving them as efficiently as possible to an interview. So there's a lot of technology and tools that we've implemented over time. The easiest and lowest cost one is using scheduling software. We get people into calls both to pre-qualify them on the phone. We also, in some cases, use it to book their interview with them. That's part of meeting people where they're at, is using technology. The great thing about those tools is it's easy to sign up, pick a date on a calendar, and then save it to their own calendar. Those tools often have email and text reminders that are part of it. We use a tool called Acuity, A-C-U-I-T-Y. It's, I believe, $200 a year for a license that your entire agency can use. We also use it on our match support side as well for people to book their match support call. We use texting and other reminder tools for people. And we also use other platforms like HubSpot, which is an inbound lead generation tool. The important thing with that is really that there are people that obviously aren't always the right people, or it might not always be the right time in their life, or they're just curious, they're not sure if they're ready. So with HubSpot, we're able to actually capture people's information about who they are and then deliver content to them over time that helps them learn about being a big brother or big sister. And then when they're ready, they can move forward at the time and pace that's right for them. You know, we know not everybody is always ready and the right person at the right time, but we've cultivated a much bigger list of several thousand people who are interested but want more information, but may not necessarily be ready to step forward at that time. And we've also adopted Salesforce as our agency database and platform, and that's been really helpful for us because we can deliver direct communications, texting reminders, things like that to help people move forward with the process. So technology has really helped us ensure that we can actually move people as quickly as possible from the inquiry to getting them to the next stage, which is really an interview for them. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rich. That was, again, really tangible and concrete, and I'm hopeful people can go ahead and implement some of these tactics in their own work. And I want to thank all of our presenters one more time for their great insights. And we'll move us into the Q&A portion of the webinar. So I'm happy to pass it over to Cheryl Howard-Neal, who is Director of Programs and Partnerships at Mentor Illinois and a contributor to our collaborative mentoring webinar series planning team. Thanks, Cheryl.
Great, thank you. We have a lot of good questions for the panel. Thanks to everybody who submitted a question. First off, in talking about pitching, you know, kind of pitching events and gatherings that we might have planned for National Mentoring Month, from you guys' perspective, what's the lead time in terms of getting media, local media, to come out to our events and kind of participate and cover it in their local papers or on TV? What's the lead time?
I can take this one. This is Jamie. I would say it's always good to give like a week's heads up and then follow up again a day or two beforehand. A lot of times assignment desks aren't really assigning things until, that day sometimes, depending on whatever else is going on. So I would say a week is a good time to give them a heads up and then a follow up the day of or the day before.
Perfect, thank you. Also, in thinking about kind of getting ideas out and getting media coverage and that kind of thing, if I have a program and I'm unable to use the photos of the kids I serve or the mentors that are working with my program, if I can't use that kind of stuff, the likenesses, the images of folks, what should I do? What are some other strategies?
That is a great question. And that is something that we face a lot, actually. So I completely identify with that. Sometimes there are ways to, if there are kids in your specific organization that you wanted to be able to highlight, a lot of times you can do a media release if their parents or guardians are open to that. Otherwise, there are additional ways. There's stock imagery, of course, which is not always as fun, but is usually model released. And you can find that on various websites, usually for lower cost. And there's also a lot of times what we will use is photos or things where you can't identify the person. So if it's, a wide shot with the backs of people or, two people holding hands where you're just seeing the hands where you can't really identify the person, that's another way to get around it.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Meyerson from Mentor. I want to give one other solution. We're trying to create a national photo library of photos that are approved for use by different programs. So we have been working in Image Relay, but if anyone is looking for photos of mentors and mentees, please reach out and ask. And if anybody has done photo shoots that you would like some of your mentors and mentees to be featured by other programs and by Mentor National and by Mentor affiliates, please reach out. We would always attribute the photo to the local program. So we can be helpful in both directions there.
Hey, this is Sarah from America's Promise Alliance. Just jumping in really quickly on this. This is actually an issue we faced last year. Just in terms of, we've actually had an issue where we had to remove photos because a parent came back and said, I don't want my child in this. So for us, what we have done is we've done two things. We actually have a paid account with Getty Images, which is a little bit on the high side, but we also use a site called unsplash.com. It's just UN and then splash, all one word, .com. It is a website that's crowdsourced by photographers across the world, and they're all free for usage. It's a free site. All you have to do is create a login. We've actually used a lot of these photos recently in our America's Promise Bulletin, and they're very gorgeous pictures. So, and you can search, they're all high res as well. So I just wanted to throw that website out there.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And also, we had another pretty good question for you. So in terms of, all the strategies that you guys have shared with the audience, we think are great, but we're curious from your perspective, what's a good way to get our mentees and our parents involved in National Mentoring Month? Are there strategies or ideas that you would have?
This is Erin from Mentor. I'm happy to dive into this one. I think a lot of the strategies and tactics that were shared on this webinar really can kind of be utilized by mentors and mentees as well. So particularly the social media story sharing. It is even more impactful to hear real stories from real mentors and mentees directly from their own mouths and minds, even more so than being vetted through an organization, which, so I think that, the ability for mentors and mentees to tell their stories directly to your organization's audience is awesome. So, finding ways to, get them to share online or to write a blog post for your site in their own words too. So again, utilizing these same strategies that you would for your organization, but taking it, kind of to a more grassroots level even.
Hi, this is Brian from Mentor as well. One of the things we did with some of the programs that I ran in the Washington, D.C. area to get parents and young people involved was to have testimonials. We can have video clips either on the website or written testimonials about their opportunity to observe the mentor and their child and the interactions and their engagement. Parent testimonials are wonderful for programs as well to talk about the relationship that they have with the organization and the outcomes associated with that as well.
Great. And I had one more for you if we have time. One of the things that kind of resonated with the audience is, in thinking about recruitment and National Mentoring Month being a key time to do this and kind of shine a light on mentoring, how do we recruit in a way that will bring in more men of color during National Mentoring Month? Are there some strategies, tips that we should be thinking about or utilizing?
Yeah, this is Rich from Big Brothers Big Sisters. I mean, we particularly focus on building partnerships with a lot of community-focused organizations that serve a range of diverse populations. So, we're recruiting with them throughout the year, but I think they often hear a little less about National Mentoring Month. So it's a good opportunity to see if you can work with an organization during National Mentoring Month specifically in a variety of ways, both if you can get in front of specific audiences, do a joint event together, really utilizing National Mentoring Month as kind of this entree to talk about it, to highlight mentors that are successful or are people that have been, doing mentoring in different organizations. We've done panel discussions that focus on it. It's a really great way to sort of leverage that time and celebrate different cultures and backgrounds. And usually if you can find the right partner in doing that, it makes for great events and a great way to raise awareness and draw more people in.
Thank you. That's it for our questions. Thanks so much, everybody.
Awesome, great questions, and thank you, Cheryl, for leading that discussion. And I just wanted to share before we close out today a few additional resources and some information about upcoming events with CMWS. So I want to remind you all to check out the OJJDP National Mentoring Resource Center website for no-cost mentoring resources to help you apply evidence-based mentoring practices to your program. The NMRC, as we call it, provides evidence reviews on mentoring models and mentoring for special populations, implementation resources from training manuals to mentor guides, reviewed by the NMRC Research Board, a blog featuring innovations and best practices for mentoring practitioners, and the opportunity to request training or technical assistance. Additionally, we encourage you to register your program with the Mentoring Connector if you haven't already. It's the only national database of mentoring programs, and it's a zip code searchable database that allows mentors and mentees from across the country to find your program. It's connected to LinkedIn, NBA Cares, Mentor.gov, and so many other avenues of free program promotion. So we really encourage you to check it out if you are not already involved there. And just a reminder, 1 week after today's webinar, all attendees will receive an email from us with a link to the Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series webpage, and we'll post there the recording, slides, and resources that we talked about during today's webinar. And also, please remember that we would love your feedback. At the end of the webinar, there is a short survey that will really help us make this series even better and be sure that we're delivering the practical tools that you can utilize. So please take a minute to fill that out. And we'd love to stay connected with you. So be sure to visit the CMWS page on the Mentor website for an archive of all of our past webinars and information about upcoming webinars. And finally, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you will join us again next month on December 21st for our December webinar on mentoring youth in foster care. Thank you all so much for taking the